right. Hey. So I am doing this a little bit different today. We're attempting to record with a better sound volume and things. Let's go. All right. So we're going to continue to work on mastering our communications. That's, sales, that's what sales is, right? It's influence. It's finding out what they want and helping them obtain that piece. So welcome to week 3. So I'd love to hear from you guys. What did you utilize this week? Or what challenges came up when we think about connecting with other people? And it may be, it could be what challenges came up. It could be something that you utilized that maybe could have been a problem, and yet you utilized your questioning skills, and you were able to get the result, the desired result.
So, I don't know if you were on the Zoom yesterday about the lead I had got. They are swapping lenders and have asked me to represent them over just me asking them simple questions about their wants and needs.
Okay, perfect. Yes, that's why we connect with people, asking them questions. What is it you want? What do you need? How can I help you get there? Like, what if we look specifically at certain questions? How many of you guys utilized, maybe you didn't even realize it, but you utilized the IFR method? And you guys remember what the IFR method is? Okay. Who can share what the IFR method is? We've talked about it for the last couple of weeks. Inquire, follow up. That's that model for how do we get a conversation to go longer? How do we get more intentional and more in depth with those conversations? I'm going to go back up one space here. And I want to start with this. And every week we're probably going to start with this for a little bit, because I want to make sure that we really, why are we spending our time on asking questions? So do you guys remember what's the importance of asking questions? What's the benefit of asking or using questions instead of telling your clients?
To find their motivation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, find their motivation, see what their needs are, and where they're willing to work.
Being able to control the conversation.
Absolutely. Person that asks the questions controls the conversation. You guys you nailed it, right? The questions hold the power to cause us to think. So when we're asking questions, it's causing your client to think. It is creating answers that they believe in, and it actually motivates us to act on those ideas. So how many of you guys really want clients that are actually acting upon moving forward? So, and then asking moves the person beyond passive acceptance of what others say, or maybe even staying stuck in their present circumstances, to aggressively applying creative ability to the problem. So now it's not just you, it's also your client creative ability to address the problem. And of course, ensures that we're active listening and really being over there with that other person. Let's go to that homework agenda. Who Googled Ford, and what did you learn?
I didn't Google Ford, but I can tell you what it means.
I will go with
that's
that.
Why I was
Go ahead, Melinda.
It's going to be your family, your occupation, your recreation, and your dreams.
That's right. And how, or what would we use that? How would we use Ford?
Well, I used it a while ago when I was talking to a for sale by owner to find out, how they came up with their price, what was allowing them to leave the location that they were in, what's motivating them to go. And I found out they were just downsizing. They were empty nesters, and so I got that information. They're not in a drastic time frame. When I asked them about, we started talking, and she let me know that they're leaving to go on a trip to Europe for a couple of weeks.
So that's their dream part, right? Future.
Yep. And they want to travel now. They want to be able to go do things, and so they don't need a big house.
Right.
So that got me the information.
So perfect. So we're making that connection by utilizing Ford. We're gonna cover Ford a little bit today. We're gonna look at some of the pieces, because I want you guys to think, and I put open house on here because I want you guys to think of everything that we're learning right now. You're going to be able to utilize it in when you meet somebody, whether you meet them over the phone, you meet them at the open house, you meet them, call a web lead, right? It's all about being very intentional with our conversations and getting really into using questions instead of just tell. Because even last week when we looked at presentation, we looked at what does a consultation look like? Well, I want you to think about the same thing at an open house. Where are we using Ford at the open house? Are we, inquiring, following up, relating at an open house? So these things go in every aspect of your world. So if we look at Ford, like Melinda said, it's family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. And dreams just means future. Recreation just means like, hey, what do you do? So we think about that Ford method. It's just a communication tool to improve our relationships and land more clients. So this is all about improving our relationships and landing more clients. And so Ford is just that acronym: family, occupation, recreation, dreams. Now, this technique is meant to be incorporated into your conversation so that you can ask the right questions to build trust and more meaningful connections. So it's not a script, right? It's really it's a dialogue. It's about active listening, asking the question, active listening, and then following up. And before you know it, you're going to be really deep into conversation. We're going to dive into each piece of this method, and then we're going to talk about how do we utilize this in an actual sentence or in a conversation. Family. Most people have a family or people they consider important parts of their lives. Even if they don't have a traditional family structure, they typically have a community of support or friends, pets, something to that effect. These are some questions, and I want you guys to throw out some others. If I were wanting to find out more about somebody and I just met them, if it's a couple, I might say, hey, how did you two meet? I might say, they have kids. What kind of activities are your kids into? What are some other questions that I might ask to learn more about somebody's family?
Vacation, stuff like that.
Well, that vacation,
Where do y'all want to go?
yeah, we could, and that could be part of the family. It's probably going to be more of that recreation piece.
I was gonna say, you just ask them kind of like, well, what they'd like to do for fun, like what they're involved in, and kind of see what they kind of thrive in,
Yep. And
what's important to them.
Yeah. And that's going to be really probably more in recreation. Now, this is the interesting thing. It doesn't, right? There's no order to this. I'm just asking order because we're walking through. But absolutely, if you're talking about them and their family, that's family. Kelsey, you were going to add something? Was that Kelsey?
Might kind of tie into, you've already asked like how many kids you have, but just asking like, well, what size home you need, hoping to kind of lead into like, is somebody else going to be living with them, like a parent or, not just a kid type thing, without being kind of blunt and ask who's going to be living with you, like how big of a house you looking for, 3 or 4 bedrooms, and usually that kind of ties into why they need 4 or however many.
Something that if questions for family did not come easy to you, like you may not even realize it until right now that you kind of got stuck, I'm going to say, write that down, make a note to come up with a few questions when you meet somebody that you'll ask around the family. So again, we talk about if it's a couple, how did you two meet? If we're utilizing, and the cool part, so I inquired, they tell me how they met. Now I'm going to follow up with another question, right? And then I might relate. Oh, we met in college. Oh gosh, did y'all go to college local? Where did y'all go? What was that like? Right. And then relate. But if you struggle to come up with questions to ask somebody to find out more about their family, make a note. You probably want to spend a couple minutes and just jot down some questions so that they'll come easily to you when you're talking to somebody. I do want to mention what to stay away from. Don't ask, when are you having kids or when are you getting married? Unless, now that'd be different if they've already let you know of those upcoming things. If they've let you know of those upcoming things, sure. But don't just assume. Be aware of those pieces. Go ahead, Melinda.
I was going to say a good one I have about family so that I don't offend somebody is I normally ask them, is school zone important to you? And that's when they'll say, oh, no, we don't have kids, or yes, it is. It's the area I want to go in. So if they say school zone, I ask, is school zone something that's important to you? Because I'm trying to find out what area they want to be in. That lets me know about the family situation.
Perfect. Okay. And then occupation. So what line of work are you in? What's keeping you busy these days? Right. So those are just what are some questions that you might ask if you were looking to connect with them over their occupation?
Maybe something along the lines of, when they tell you what they do, be like, oh, cool, tell me more about it. I don't know a lot about, like, I wouldn't say play dumb, but like ask them a little bit more detailed without just saying, tell me more about it. Like,
Or
just
just,
be like, oh, that's intriguing.
Yeah. I was thinking more like, could I ask them where they work, if commute, like how long, far are they willing to commute, if they're wanting to be close to work?
absolutely. So
And you
what
just
line of work are you in?
naturally just be like, oh, what do you do for a
Yeah.
living then?
Yeah, 100%, because all of these can build on each other, right? So what kind of, what line of work
Mhm.
are you in? And they say, oh, okay, so does that, tell me more about what you do. And they tell you, now, do you try, do you need to stay within a certain range of your work? Does that, right? So you can keep digging into those pieces. Now, keep in mind that some of this will absolutely help you. We're talking about a client and we're talking about straight, like, they're looking for a house. And yet some of this is just connecting with people as well. Absolutely. So love that. So occupation. Now we're going to move into recreation. So recreation, just what do you do for recreation? What do you do for fun? That's all we're really saying. So what do you do on weekends? Let's say that you had, like Amanda spoke about last week, we cyber stalked them, right? And we did some Facebook stalking and we saw that they had taken a trip to Disney World. And let's say that this is somebody that you need to call through your database. You can ask them, how was their trip to Disney World? Y'all have any, plans coming up around Disney? How was your weekend, right? All of these things are recreation conversations, okay? And then we've got dreams, which just means future plans or goals. So any plans for the summer? I know your last kid, at home graduates this year. What are your plans? What are you going to do next? These are about how to connect with people. And there are a couple of things that you need to keep in mind with this is we're not going to you're not going to necessarily use all of the Ford every time you talk to somebody. You're probably going to, focus on one or the other. So keep that in mind. Now, the other piece that I want to say around Ford, we're going to talk a little bit about some dialogues that we can use Ford in. There's two types or two different ways to utilize this. And a lot of this depends on your behavioral style. So sometimes we talk about a Ford sandwich or a Ford open face sandwich. And an open face sandwich, right? That's just like a burger that doesn't have the bun on top, right? So some of you guys behaviorally, you're going to want to have conversations. Let's say that you're calling somebody in your sphere. And you're going to start off that conversation with something like, hey, I saw on Facebook that you guys just got back from Disney. How was that? So I'm going straight into the Ford, right? And so this is the description of Ford sandwich. So I go straight into Ford sandwich. We talk about that. And then I say, hey, the reason I was calling today is, and I go into business, right? And then I'm going to wrap up at the end. I'm going to wrap this back up with the Ford sandwich again. And let's say that we were talking about Disney. At the end of that conversation, I'm going to wrap that back up with, so, do y'all have any other plans? Or what's your next family adventure going to be? So that's what I mean by a Ford sandwich. So we start off with Ford. We then get into the meat of the call, the reason why we called, and then we end with a Ford, which, right? And a lot of times that Ford's going to go back to the first one. It doesn't have to, right? Now, some of us are going to really like that. Others, D behavioral style, the C behavioral style, you're probably going to be more comfortable with just an open face sandwich. Meaning, like if I'm calling, so like if I were going to call Sean, I might, hey, Sean, how are you doing? Did I call you at a good time? Great. Hey, the reason I was calling Sean, and go straight into business. That is an open face sandwich because I cover the business and then I'm probably going to wrap up with Ford. So there's no right or wrong here. It's just what makes sense for you or what your behavioral style is of the person that you're talking to. Because if you're talking to somebody that's a D or a C, they might want you to go straight to, hey, the reason I was calling you today. So what are you guys hearing from this?
I mean, it just, for me, it's kind of things I've done along the way, but just trying to find a way to be relatable and not make a phone call immediately awkward. I mean, I use the Ford method more ad showings, because I was going to say something about your R&D, like the recreation. Like I try to find something if they have like a work shirt or like a sporting shirt or something on their vehicle, like stickers. I can say, hey, yeah, I see you got softball in there. Y'all big, softball travel team or anything like that. But it just makes you instantly connect with them by using those questions to me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because it's about connecting.
Yeah,
Anybody else?
I tend to use the open face sandwich, I would say, because in my mind, if I'm talking to someone, it's about real estate, it's for that reason. So I like to get direct into that, talk to them a little bit, kind of feel them out, and then I'll start using those methods to try to connect to them and
Yeah.
build that connection.
Okay, perfect. And that's all things are, it's different for a little, everybody will do it a little different. And that's why you have options. I do, this is the interesting thing. So it's now April the 19th. One of the things that has proven time and time again for us to the maximum that we can from our sphere, getting repeat and referral, our goal is to talk to them once a quarter, regardless if they're looking to buy a house, right? So what I'm going to challenge everybody to do is look to see how many people you have in your sphere. Divide that up by the number of days that you're planning on working in the second quarter. That's how many contacts per day you should make to your database. And you're going to either use the Ford sandwich or the Ford open face sandwich model. It might look, if I were calling, let's say I'm calling somebody and I haven't talked to them in a while. Maybe it's a past client. I might say, hey, George, it's Olivia, your favorite realtor. Do you got a minute? Yeah, I do. Great. Hey, first, I have to tell you, I'm a little bit embarrassed. I've let way too much time go by since I've been in touch. Please accept my apology. Now there's, no awkwardness. Now, if I'm doing an open face sandwich, I'm probably going to go, he forgives me, or oh yeah, that's fine. I've been busy too. Great. I won't take a lot of your time. However, I did just want to take a minute, Ford sandwich. I just wanted to take a minute to see what's new in your world and to give you a little update on our real estate market. So tell me, what's the most exciting thing going on in your world these days? What's going on at work, right? So now I'm forward at the beginning. Do you have any exciting vacation plans this summer? That type of thing, right? So I'm going to pick some of that. And that would be me with the Ford. And then I would say, George, on a business note, the market here, as you've likely heard, is what? We've got a lot of buyers and we can't find houses for them. And in fact, I'd love to keep you up to date on the trends. Are you getting the emails that we're sending you? Is there anything in particular that you'd like for us to share with you? Let me confirm our email address. Might be where I ask, do you know anyone from work or church that may have any real estate plans this year? Great. If you think of anyone, as always, I appreciate your referrals. Now I'm going to go back to Ford. Well, and it was really great to hear about your family or what you've been doing in your world, right? I'm going to refer back to that Ford piece. Sounds like you're doing great. Have a great day. I promise not to be so long between our calls in the future. So that's kind of an example of a real life like Ford, when you're talking about reaching out to your database. And then obviously if you got a referral, you would make a phone call. If you didn't get a referral, or either way, you'd probably send a thank you, a note card or an email or text. Hey, it was great catching up, and moving forward from there. If we look at utilizing Ford with our database and making all of our sphere calls this quarter, what comes up for you guys?
A lot of phone calls.
Could be. How many
Definitely
people-
need to do that more than I do now.
How many people do you have in your sphere? Ballpark.
A lot.
Maybe 400-ish or something. I would
nearly
really,
enough.
truly.
Okay. So I am going to suggest everybody look for that number, because this is the interesting thing. A lot of times we look at 400, we go, wow, that's a lot. And yet if we took that in a quarter, there's typically 20 work days. Now, obviously I understand that, as realtors, people work weekends and everything, but if we were to look at Monday through Friday, there's about 20 working days in each month. So if I took that 400 and I divided it by 60, because that would give me 20, that basically I would need to make 7 contacts per day to get everybody in my database talked to in that quarter. So Amanda, when you think about now, still, it's one of those things, if we're not doing it, it's not to say that it's easy. And yet when you think about, if you talk to 7 people a week, or I'm sorry, a day, is that an easier number to think about than 400?
Yeah, it's definitely less less daunting.
What about you, Chris? How do you know about how many people you have in your sphere?
Same as Amanda's. It's like around 400 or 500. So I know I need to do
7 to 10 a
10
day.
yeah, probably 5 to 10 a day
Yeah.
every quarter. If we're going off quarter, then yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Because if we do it
that's
every,
just,
go ahead, Chris.
I was just gonna say that's really hard to do every quarter though. I was thinking maybe once every 6 months. I
Talk
don't
to me
know.
when you say it's hard to do per quarter. What do you mean?
Is that what we're talking about? You're wanting to reach out to your sphere quarterly?
Yeah. Yeah. That's what
Yeah,
you
that's
said.
just difficult.
What's hard
Yeah,
about
this
it?
is a daunting task. Just because I already have to talk to so many people already daily.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's why it's difficult to do. Even getting an email list sent out is difficult. A mass text would almost be the easiest,
Well, and so
but
this,
I know people like that, and
yeah.
that's not a good touch point.
Yeah. Well, and this is for everybody because you definitely bring up a truth, right? Because you go, okay, well, I'm already making this many contacts a day. Now I need to make 7 to 10 contacts a day to hit my sphere. So there's a couple of things. Email, now we're doing that, right? So your sphere, as long as they're in sync, and if they're not in sync, get them to me somewhere else, and we can upload them into sync, and we can email them out. They're going to get an email from you every month, right? We're getting ready to get that second email to go out. So now we've taken care of the email part. For mass texting, because I would also suggest that every month you guys text everybody in your database. With that said, don't try to do that individually. Get that app that's called Reach, and that way it comes from your cell phone. And we can look at, and I'll show you guys like some of the almost pre-written text messages that you can use so that it becomes super simple for you to do that. And then the quarterly calls, because 100%, the quarterly calls is probably the most challenging, and yet it's the most rewarding, because think about how many referrals that you already are getting. I know Amanda, you and Chris, y'all both get a lot of referrals. If you're talking to people, how many more would you get by just staying in touch with and making sure that they, you're staying on top of mind? So it definitely, so that might be the next step, is how do you make sure that, do you have an hour a day? We can talk to 5 to 10 people per hour. Now, if I'm talking web leads and I can probably do 20 in an hour, because those are more like, are you interested? No yet, right? Those are quicker conversations. But if you're talking to your sphere, some of them are going to go longer. And so, but typically, and so how do you set aside an hour a day where you're lead generating? Or everybody's a little different. It might be, I want to try to make all of my contacts in one day. And so you go, okay, I'm going to do 25 contacts on Tuesday, and I'm going to set aside 4 or 5 hours. And now I'm done with all of my database calls for that week. So I highly suggest to everyone, look at your schedule and how do you get in that habit, talking about everybody. So if it's a web lead and you haven't met with them and you're following up with them, that's different than what I'm talking about with your sphere. Your sphere, you want to. And the other piece, like this, we can look at, and maybe on Wednesday we can look at, or maybe even next Friday, we can look at and go, okay, if I'm going to say this quarter, what am I going to say next quarter? Because a lot of times what we discover is we don't have call reluctance. We have value deficiency. Like, I don't want to call people just to call, and I feel weird, but we can set it up so that every quarter we're calling them about a specific thing. And that a lot of times takes a lot of the call reluctance out. So it's between like, how do we put it in your schedule, and how do we make it so that what we're saying lands with them and we feel like we're bringing value. So with that said, I am going to send out some scripts that you guys might want to look at. Again, I'm not looking for it necessarily. I don't care if you have a conversation that looks just exactly like that, but maybe if you're a newer agent, or maybe you're not a newer agent, but you're kind of stuck with like, what do I say? What can I say? I'm kind of, I'm going to send you guys some examples, look through them, make it your own, and yet really would challenge everybody. What would you need to do so that by the end of June, you've had a conversation with everybody in your sphere, and Ford will help us to do that. One that I'm going to highly suggest that everybody use this one. Maybe this is this quarter's call. Okay. So what if your call this quarter was, hey, how are you doing? Have a great day. And if you like the open face sandwich, you just go straight to, hey, today's call is about business. Do you have a minute? If you like more of the Ford sandwich, then you would talk, how are you guys doing? What's your family? And then we would go to, I got a, business question for you. Do you have a minute? And you might say, so George, we've been really successful getting our clients' homes sold this year, and we could use your help. Inventory is low and we need some great homes to sell. Do you know anyone either at work, church, or maybe even a neighbor that has any moving plans, specifically in that 175 to 225 price point? We're low in those other price points, but specifically there. Now you're giving them some specifics to think about. Yes, no, maybe. Great. Well, I'd appreciate you letting me know if you hear of anyone. Your referrals will always be treated with the utmost care. Thanks for taking a minute, thanks for taking a minute to answer this for me. While I've got you on the phone, is there anything that we can do for you? Do you need any referrals to any house vendors? Is there anything that we can do for you? Nope. Okay, great. And I'm going to either say, make it a great day, or I'm going to go into Ford at this piece right here. Right. So that becomes a super simple way to call all of your database, bring value, because now they see that what you're doing, and you're able to potentially find some additional properties for sale. What are you guys thinking?
Every time I make these calls like this, I always feel like they don't want to talk, or that they're just thinking I'm using them to make more money. And that's why I'm always worried to have the conversation and follow up quarterly. I don't want it to feel sales pitchy or feel like I'm trying to get something out of them.
Okay. How many of you guys feel the same way Chris does? Yeah, you're not alone in that, Chris. The thing is so this becomes a mindset piece. So I would actually, and this isn't just for Chris, this is for anybody that feels like that, because it's a natural human thing to feel that way. If we haven't talked to somebody in a while, I probably wouldn't ask for a referral. It would be a connection. I wanted to check in with you. Do you need anything? 100%. The cool part is if we're talking to them every quarter, because we're also sending them items of value, because we're also connecting with them, because now it doesn't become weird for us to say, do you know anybody that we can help, right? So a lot of times the mindset piece, if it feels weird, it's probably go with it. And what I mean by that is if you feel weird about it, then instead of doing this particular call as a referral call, just do this as a checking in. So, hey, Chris, you got a sec? Hey, man, it's been a while since I talked to you. And every time I pass that street over there on George Welch, I think about you and your family. And today I said, dang it, I'm calling him. How are you doing? What's up? And that's it. We start feeling weird because we haven't talked to them in a long time. Or at least sometimes that's what happens, is we just haven't talked to them in a while, right?
Yeah, that's generally it. I haven't talked to somebody in a while, and
yeah,
I don't know, it feels weird.
It does.
I think that's why I like Facebook, like commenting on people's statuses and kind of like starting the conversation through there. Then I may take it off the rate, take it to a private message and get one that way. Like, to me, that's not as creepy.
Yeah. Well, and so I agree. And I like what you're talking about, Kelsey, but this is the thing is, if we don't rip the Band-Aid off, it always just gets longer and longer. So I'm going to suggest, if you have not spoken with that client in 3 months or longer, use this next 3 months to just call and touch base. And just do the whole, sorry, I haven't been in touch. Every time I drive by or I see this, I think about you. And I said, today, I'm just doing it. How you doing? How's your family? How's your mama? Like, whatever you know about them, right? And they're going to say, we're good, we're not, we, you know, okay, hey man, I won't keep you long. I just wanted to check in with you. That's it. Now, whenever you make the next call the next quarter, it hasn't been that long. We're still going to call them with something of value. And then we'll create the conversation that doesn't feel weird about asking for the referral. This is the other thing is a lot of times if you stay in touch with people and you're sharing information, you may find that you don't even have to ask for the referral, but we do have to stay in front of them. They have to remember, because if you think about everything that hits everybody all the time, I think I asked this question in class a while back and I said, how many of you guys know what, you know, so-and-so's husband does, or, you know, what do they do? And most of us are like, I don't know. So they could know you and still call a sign or do this because they're just not thinking about it. So we want to make sure that we're staying top of mind. You might discover, Chris, that really works. If you're having those quarterly calls, we'll pull up and I'll show you those, like text messages. That might, if you did monthly text messages, that might be where you're more real estate related. And it might only be in the sense of your tagline might be, you can use this one or you use a different one. But when I'll text somebody, wrap it up with your favorite realtor, Chris Rux, right? So I'm not even saying like, so there's different taglines that we can use in your text messages and things to that effect. We're staying connected. They don't feel like we just dated and dumped them, or, you know, because we did a deal with them and then they didn't hear from us, right? So we're staying in touch and it makes it so much simpler, or I would say easier for us to stay in touch and get those referrals and those reviews. Does that help at all, Chris?
Yeah, no, it does. I think it's just going to be making the time to make those 10 calls every day. I just need to master my schedule.
Yeah. And what you may discover as well, as we play around with the conversations that you're going to have, because as you discover, oh, wow, this is a simpler conversation, or I like the feel of this conversation, it might actually be a lot easier than you think to get those 10 in, because sometimes if we feel like it's going to be hard, we start resisting and then everything, you know, gets in the front of that. Like, we're like, oh man, I don't want to call that person. I feel weird about it. There's something in that, either what we're saying and we feel like we're not bringing value, or there is something in like, hey, there's distance. And so we've got to figure out how to bridge that distance. And so this is where we go in and we go, okay, well, what could I say? What does that person say? What are some options, until you find the piece and you go, okay, that actually feels very comfortable for me. I would absolutely call them and say that. And so that's going to be some of the pieces that we look at and we work on. And it also may be we can bring the weirdness to a conversation. The client is just doing their life, right? But I know that I used to I felt weird about asking for a referral. And so what I started doing was just letting people know my sphere, at the closing, et cetera. I'd say, hey, look, you know that my business runs on referrals. And I love working with people like you. And what I've discovered is that you hang out with other people like you. And so would it be okay if like 4 times a year or a couple times a year, I reached out and just asked you, like, who do you know that's looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate? And they say yes. And now I don't ever feel weird about it again, because I've set that up that they're okay with it. And so, just, figuring out that place that you get comfortable in it. So that might be part of when we look at the success of our business, it's skills, it's mindset and skill set. So number one, we have to look at, okay, what's the mindset that you think that you're worrying somebody? Is that, or, you're bothering somebody? Is that really true? If you're concerned about that, if you have not read the book, Fanatical Prospecting, or listen to that book, I'm 100%, please listen to Fanatical Prospecting. And then number 2 would be skill set. Is it just the skill set of the communication that we need, and more, or maybe is it the skill set in our timing? But both of those are going to be something that we really want you to look at. Okay, so we've got just a few minutes left. So I do want to hit this piece. So just like we talked about last week when we said, when you're doing a presentation, whether that's a buyer's consultation, a listing presentation, or even at an open house. I want you guys to think about it in these 5 steps. Connection. They come in the open house or you meet somebody. Are you making that connection? Are you walking up? And again, some people would use forward right here, but are you walking up and making a connection? So, hey, Kelsey, thanks for coming to my open house. I find that people come to my open houses for 1 of 2 reasons. You're thinking about selling, and so you're kind of scoping out the competition, or you're looking at buying in this area. Which one are you? So I've started by walking up, shaking their hand, asking a question other than, are you, how can I help you? Because then they just say, just looking. Then based on their what they say, and gives me an opportunity to kind of go into motivation, or, okay, well, go check out the house. Let me know. Now I'm having some conversations. So the presentation is more like letting them see, finding out, and then you can help you with that. What's the information we need to get from them, and then helping them make a decision to utilize you. So that's just over and over and over again, right? And then as far as an assignment, should you choose to accept it, guys, utilize the Ford model in at least 5 conversations this week, intentionally. So, and you're going to notice, odds are you're going to notice that you already do this. You already do this where you talk to somebody and you're like, oh yeah, I asked about their family, or I asked about their occupation, or I asked about, right? And utilizing the inquire. So how'd you 2 meet? A follow-up question, and then relate. So I'm just happen to be looking at Chris right now. So if Chris were to say, how did you guys meet? And then they said, we met at working out. And then, oh yeah, where was that? What was that like? And then he gets to relate, well, yeah, Jen and I both, we work out a whole lot, right? Like, so that's that. And now we're talking about recreation. And so this week, be really intentional. Are we using that in at least 5 conversations this week? And then I'm going to challenge everybody to call 20 people between now and next week from your sphere. Past client sphere, same thing. If you're new, Nadia, and I'm going to include some of these dialogues, an email for you guys. So you guys are either going to maybe use, hey, we're short on inventory. You're just going to check in with them if you haven't done that in a while. Or if you're a new agent, you're going to tell them what you're doing, or you're asking for referral. So I'm going to include all of those in there in an email with those pieces. You guys might not need those pieces, but yet they will be in that email for you guys. How many of you guys will accept this assignment?
I'll do it.
Okay, who said I'll do it? Jesse?
I'll definitely do it. Me
Who's
and
that?
Nadia.
Okay. So I heard Jesse, Nadia. Who was there? Somebody else?
I'll do it. And Kelsey's raising her hand also.
Okay, awesome. So Jesse, Nadia.
So you just want us to make 5 contacts a day? Is that what you said?
Yeah, you can make 5 contacts a day, or you can make them 20 in one day, whatever. But just
And you want us to use that?
the Ford
Are you
model.
going to email us? Yeah.
I will.
That
I
Ford
will.
model.
I will email that to you. Yeah. Yeah. And you probably are going to discover that you use the Ford model in all 20 conversations, which makes it super simple. But if you don't, that's not the end of the world. It's just one technique, right? Of connecting with people. Let's see. Who did I not hear from? So Alex Pinarski.
Howdy, I'm here.
Okay. You going to make 20 contacts this week?
We are certainly going to try.
I'm going to let that slide today. There is no try, dude. On, what about you?
Yeah, I did. Sorry. Yeah, I'm in.
Okay, you're in. Amanda Colvin.
Sorry, I couldn't unmute. Yes, I'm in.
Okay. Melinda, I know you're already making calls every day with the 20, but this would be, 20 from your sphere. So in addition to what you're doing.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I was
And
gonna say,
then-
if I didn't make 20 contacts, Harrison would fire me.
That's right. That's right. So this would be in addition to. All right. And then Harrison, you in? Harrison's in. Like I said, I will email those, but it's just past clients and sphere. Now, this is the cool part. So let's say that you're showing a house to somebody and they wouldn't count unless you're showing a house to them. And then while you're showing the house to them, you asked, So who else do you know, or who do you know that's also looking to buy a house that I should know? Now they count as a contact for this
Ugh.
particular exercise. That makes sense? Y'all good? 3 minutes. So I want to hear from you guys. What did you get today that made you glad that you attended this call?
Just the fact that I need to start asking more people who I need to know that is also looking for a home, because there's been plenty of times I've been showing a client a home and their friend buys the home also with another realtor, and I didn't ask.
Yeah. Love it. Yeah.
Could have had two instead of just one.
Yes. I love that. That's a huge one.
It makes
I
me
would say
feel more
just the
comfortable.
accountability.